أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وأحلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to class number 2 of our discussion on rebuilding the foundation of our deen. And last night, as a introductory discussion, actually class number 1 now, we spoke about mafhum din, the concept of religion. We defined the term in the lexical way, in the dictionary way. We also defined the term in the istilahi way, the way that's commonly used. And then we talked about what a true religion is. It's based on reality. And how do we measure reality? We measure reality based on the common view of reality within man. And yes, when it comes to minute and microscopic discussions, reality differs drastically from person to person. But in the overall concept of certain things, this reality is shared by many people across the board. We then talked about the idea that the primary and the secondary, right? That a true religion based on reality is one that not only is theoretical in nature, but also practical in nature. The primary being the theory, the secondary being the practice. The primary being the asl, or the jar as you know it, and the secondary being the far, or the root as you know it. Sorry, as the branch as you know it. And this also corresponds with terms like worldview and ideology. The worldview being the theoretical overall kulli idea of the religion, and the ideology being the day-to-day practice of the religion. That led to a discussion on the chain of thought. And I thought, let's move away from the words. Let's truly identify where the deen or where religion should be applicable inside of our day-to-day life. We talked about, for a good half an hour now, the chain of thought, right? From fikr to vat and everything in between, right? Fikr, mel, fi'il, khulq, malaka, vat, right? The 6 chains of thought. Talked about the idea that where does religion come into? It actually comes in with the triggers of the thoughts, okay? Those things that are in our control and those things that are not so much in our control. Our society, our mahal, our environment, our family, those are things out of our control. But those things that are in our control is the media, our friends, how we handle our mental health issues, our stress and anxiety, all that is within our control. Religion now dictates to us that, look, if you manage your triggers of your thought properly, the thoughts will come in terms of khair and good. That will now instigate a relatively positive chain of thought, okay? That was all yesterday. Let's go ahead and move forward to class number 2 today, inshallah. And again, I'll share my screen. And as always, questions, you can go ahead and ask them inside of the WhatsApp group, and be more than happy to answer those questions for you, time permitting. Now, just a few points that I want to make here quickly is that, this is meant to be a dars, a classroom environment. Let's treat it that way. Hopefully there's notes being taken, or somebody from the family is taking notes. And later on, these notes become like your own personal library. And in fact, I encourage, even with Maulana Askari speeches or anyone else, should have a little bit of notepad, and those points that kind of resonate with you, write them down. After many, many years, like I said, you'll have a good reference material to always refer back to. Okay. Let's move forward to my class number 2. Okay. And here is, like I said last night, now let's open up the discussion on the worldview and ideology. Okay, these 2 terms have to be understood. And there's a lot to cover tonight. I'll try not to go too quickly, but I will have to cover everything before at least 6:45 Eastern. Right now it is 6:17. Okay, so this is one of the most crucial discussions we have in this entire 15 nights that I'm with you. Okay, every system of belief has its own worldview, and that's essentially what it presents itself to its respective followers. Okay, inside of our books, the word worldview and the word religion are sometimes used interchangeably. Okay, but let's define this term as we like to do. What is referred to as Jahan Bini, how one sees the world. Essentially, the understanding of the word is within the word itself. It's a collection of harmonious beliefs of man and the universe. Here, of course, man being a human being and the universe. How you see this world is how essentially you'll live. So to bring it down to a digestible level, people who believe this world to be the end all and be all, everything in it, are people who will live in that world like that. There are those who see this world to be a bridge, a passing, and will live accordingly. Decisions, sacrifices, compromises are all based on how you view the world. Okay? Subconsciously, consciously, it dictates everything in terms of how we live our life. So every major, minor religion, anything, you can believe in cows, you can believe in God, you can believe in unicorns, you can believe in fire, you can believe in yourself. Everyone has a specific worldview. Okay, it's that worldview that gives life to our ideology. How we act on that worldview, of course, is dependent on the worldview itself. Okay. Every major and minor system of belief has its own worldview. I said that already, right? Now, how do I differentiate between, let's say, for example, a certain worldview and someone else's worldview? How do I know, what am I looking for? What are those kind of key components that makes me realize that this might be something that I want to now invest in? Okay. So it has to be able now, any worldview has to be able to answer three fundamental questions. Okay, and respond to them in terms of our own existence. Okay, without that proper understanding of these three questions now, and it's in front of you now, right? Origin, purpose, and destination. There really is no purpose in a worldview. The worldview is meant now to give a man an insight into his or her own existence. Okay, think about it for a moment, right? If it doesn't present to you answers on where we came from, what we're doing here, where we're going, really, what exactly is it there for, right? And we find that even those minor systems of belief today that don't really answer the question of origin, for example, I'm saying, end up being things that are easily rejected by the human being. Okay. These three questions really shape our path. It shapes our motivation. It shapes everything. If I could boil down the amount of questions I receive from people, it's always about these three. Tell me about my creation. Tell me about the world before this. Tell me about why did God create me? My young guys always ask me, I never asked for this, Asad Bhai, I never asked to be created. Why did he create me? Blah, blah, blah. Or they ask me, what is this life thing, Asad Bhai? What am I doing here? Why am I here? Right? If God knows everything, then why am I carrying out those actions? It feels like it's somewhat redundant and somewhat useless. And then, of course, whenever anybody passes away, I always get phone calls from the family. Can you tell me where my son is right now, where my mom is right now? Can she see me? Can she hear me? Is he mad at me? Is he happy with me? All those things are destination, right? A fundamentally sound and realistic worldview, excuse me, has to now answer these three main questions: the origin, the purpose, the destination. Okay? And honestly, I've been dealing with a number of reverts into our religion in the past year. This year has been a tough one for a lot of us, but it's also given a lot of people time to think and ponder. And when you think and you ponder, you kind of think, okay, where am I going in life? What's my path? What's my journey? And they end up now kind of double thinking what they believe in, right? And that religion or that system of belief that they inherited, they end up questioning that. And with questions now comes some analysis. So I've had a lot of reverts now come to me, and when I speak to them about what is it that turned you towards Islam or away from your previous religion, they said that, look, they weren't able to answer the question about the origin. And the more I kind of pressed them for answers, the more they had said, look, don't ask too many questions, just believe. And that was a red flag for me. So these three questions are extremely important, okay? Now, to give you some idea of how Islam presents its worldview, as you know, and this is something that all of you should understand. I'm sure I'll get questions. As far as I remember, from when I was a child, I used to be taught that the usul of the deen are 5, correct? That's not always true. To be considered a Muslim in Islam, a Muslim now, on paper, just a Muslim, you are asked to believe in 3. Okay, so the usul al-din are 3. The usul al-madhab, the usul that the Shias believe in, are 5. Okay, now one can argue that the Shia is the deen is the Shia. That's a different discussion altogether. I don't want to go down that path. But for you now, in the eyes of God, to be considered now, in terms of simply like a definition basis, a Muslim, you have to believe in Tawheed, Nabuwa, and Ma'ad. The oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning Tawheed, the prophethood, and you have to believe in the idea that the Prophet of Allah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, is the last of the prophets, and you have to believe in the Day of Judgment. Okay, that would be considered a belief in Islam. Okay, why is it that belief? Because we also know, the 3 questions on your screen right now: where did everything come from? Where's everything going? And what should be done in the meantime? And I had those 2 mixed up. I'm sorry. The questions should be a little bit, it should be swapped. Anyways, we know that the innate nature of the human being, at some point, every human being will ask themselves these 3 questions, right? We always wonder where we came from, what are we doing here, where are we going? And so Islam says, for you now to be able now to understand this, we understand these 3 now to be not only the roots of the religion, but also now the idea of innate questions that are answered. Okay, so the claim that we have as Muslims, it's a very large claim, and it's our audacity that we claim that Islam is an innate religion. It's a fitrat. It's a religion of the fitrat. Okay, you don't need to look outwardly to understand Islam. You need to look inwardly. Those questions that have bothered you since you were a child are questions that actually make up the base of the religion itself. Okay, so discussion on Tawheed is origin, discussion on Nabuwat, the very reason why they were sent down as prophets was to teach us how to live our life, right? That's why the Quran refers to the Prophet as uswatun hasana, an ideal example for you. If you want to know how to live, simply follow my prophets and my imams. And then, of course, destination is Ma'ad, or as you know it as Qiyamah, the day of judgment. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what worldview is. Let's look at it through a little bit of a different realm now here. Okay, how does worldview affect our day-to-day thought, our day-to-day action? Okay, so any worldview that you and I now own, like the atheist has its worldview, the Muslim has its worldview, the Jew, the Hindu has their respective worldviews. Okay, a true worldview that is based on reality and answers those 3 questions, ultimately now initially on the left of your screen, it affects our reason. Okay, how we come to 2 + 2 = 4, how we understand what this means, okay, how we comprehend certain things, right, is all based in our reason. The reason then gives birth to our thoughts, okay? All right, now, again, if I lean on yesterday's class, the chain of thought, then, those triggers of thought are essentially things that enter our head, play with our reason, convince us that this is the way you should think, and then, of course, we begin to think, right? And then the thought, of course, to our comprehension, how we comprehend certain things is sometimes based on our thinking, okay? We contemplate for an hour about, let's say, for example, I don't know, the pandemic and the origin of the pandemic, and then we begin to comprehend that. Right or wrong is not my discussion. I simply want to establish tonight the effect the strong effect, the powerful effect that a worldview, any worldview, has on our internal kingdom. Okay? On the one side, on the other side, of course, it also affects our aql and our intellect. Now, a lot of you will ask, what's the difference, Asabai, between reason and intellect? Okay. Now, there's a lot of things internally inside of our kingdom, guys, that belong to our internal kingdom, but actually have very, very vast roles to play. For example, if I had time, I would go through the definition of qalb and nafs and ruh and, and other things as well. These three, qalb and nafs and ruh, right? Our heart, our animal, our desires, and of course our spirit, right? Are these three separate things? One can say they all belong to our internal kingdom, that dimension of us that's metaphysical, but they all play three distinct roles. Okay. Similarly, reason and intellect, albeit internal realities, play two different roles. The reason is there for us to comprehend certain things. The intellect is for us to understand certain things. Now, comprehend and understanding, comprehension now comes to the idea that, okay, I understand, or sometimes the idea of making sound decisions comes from reason. Understanding concepts comes from intellect. Okay. Now, the intellect then, of course, it gives birth to our knowledge, our ilm. So from aql now gives birth to our ilm. Ilm gives birth to our amal. Okay? These are two on both sides of the worldview that exist. Okay? Now, to bring home yesterday's discussion, it's an ongoing change. Okay? So let me go ahead and complete the slide. Okay? So on the right side, the word is called epistemology, and we'll have an entire class on epistemology. It's a big word. Don't be worried. I'll break it down for you. But a lot of you know what epistemology is. And on the right side is ideology, how we act. Okay, the secondary portion of our of religion. Now, the dashed line in between, you'll notice that from action to comprehension, it comes in the middle and it goes back up, which means what? This process is always evolving. Okay, we don't have a single worldview at the age of 15 or 9 or 10 when we become baligh, and that worldview stays with us until the end of our life. No, the worldview of ours is constantly changing, constantly evolving. Either it's changing completely, or it's it's weakening, or it's strengthening. My elders out there, I ask you to think about how you saw the world when you were 15, when you were 25, when you were 35, when you were 45. Right? Hopefully, I hope that as you got older and more mature, and the eyes of your insight began to catch its vision, you began to realize that the worldview is ever changing. Okay, there are people now who become spiritual later on in their life. Their worldview has changed, and that could happen from everything from their thought pattern to their knowledge to any one of these 6 boxes. Now could instigate a change. There are people who start wearing hijab later on in life, people who start growing a beard later on in life, or God forbid the other way, people start to move away from Allah. They start to, of course, move away from their religion and start to denounce their religion. Then there are reverts, right? Born an atheist now. I've had many cases in the past couple of years where there was a son of 2 atheist people, ridiculed religion, and right now he is a Shia Momin who attends my classes, for example, right? So that's a worldview that's constantly evolving. Okay, now what is it that affects our worldview? Many things do. From our company to our our reading, to our knowledge, to what we think about. Of course, our thought based on last night, of course, is triggered by what we watch and what we do. You'll notice that as you purify the things around you, as you purify the avenues into your eyes and your ears and your tongue, you're very cautious of what you watch and what you hear and what you say. You'll notice that your worldview will begin to change. Okay, as you begin to increase your knowledge, your worldview begins to change. As your amal increases, now you add one small thing to your amal every single day, the worldview changes. What I mean by the worldview is that you start to see things in this world a little bit differently. Others might freak out, you're very calm. Others might be lax, you're a little bit concerned, right? It might be the fact that this pandemic now has wreaked havoc in someone's thoughts in their heart. Meanwhile, you understand this is a test for me. I have to get through it, right? It could be that, for example, you lose your father, you lose your mother. Everyone else would have, I mean, so many people I see that when tragedy hits their homes, words of kufr and shirk come out of their mouth, right? How could you? How dare you? What's the purpose of this entire deen? If at the end I have to lose my loved one, blah, blah, blah. Then there are those who actually, submit to Allah. And through each tragedy now, they get stronger and stronger in terms of God. Okay. So many, many factors, okay, contribute to our ongoing worldview. That's why, you've heard this from me many times in New Jersey. This is a process. The deen, religion, worldview is a process, an ongoing process, right? I'll give an example. When, like, after the war of Badr, the first battle between the enemies and Islam in Medina. After that war, there were a number of Muslims who were shaheed, right? They were martyred. And the Holy Prophet gives this sermon to the families of the shuhada, the families of the martyrs, giving them tasalli, a little bit of, a little bit of encouragement, and saying, look, this is where now your son or your brother or your husband or your father now are in the eyes of God, right? There are a very elevated status of the shaheed inside of Islam, to the point where now, he was giving comfort to the families of those who just lost their loved ones. The khutbah was so powerful. The sermon of the Prophet was so powerful. I mean, he really presented the level of the shuhada to a level where Imam Ali now began to weep after the sermon. When asked by Rasulullah, why are you crying? He says, why was I not chosen in the war of Badr for this azim status, this high status of being shaheed? I mean, why them? Why not us, basically? Why them? Why not me? And the Prophet says to Imam Ali, this is a very famous one, right? We hear this in the Masayib of the Shahadat of Imam Ali, where the Prophet says, no, Ali, there will come a day where your white beard will be drained and stained with your own blood. You will also taste martyrdom. You'll taste Shahadat. And the question that Imam Ali asked, I want you to look at that question you've heard now since you're a child through the lens of the slide in front of you. That, Ya Rasulullah, when my beard is dripping with my own blood, will my heart have certainty in the path of Allah? That's a beautiful question. And the Prophet says, yes. Think about that for a moment. In the war of Badr, he just put his life on the line for the deen of Islam. That means that at that moment, Imam Ali's heart was filled with certainty of Allah. You would not be on the battlefield, on the front lines, up against, the toughest of the enemies, if you didn't have that yaqeen. So why would he question if that yaqeen would remain at the end of his life? He knew full well that this is a process, and this dunya now and satanic forces now will do their best to come and infiltrate that worldview. Okay. So he wanted to make sure that, look, the yaqeen I have right now, I want to make sure that that remains inside of me, right? Meaning that it's going to change. Okay. So we have to embrace that process. That's why discussions like these have to happen 30, 40, 50 times in our lifetime. Okay. I've said this before, I had one teacher who taught me a book on theology. And he said that as much as the Hausa tries to give me other classes to teach, I refuse them all. And I tell them I'm only going to teach theology. So I've taught the same book and the same concepts for the past 25 to 30 years. And I do it for selfish reasons, Asad, he told me. I do it because I want that theology to always remain inside of me. Okay? And this is that month now where we truly understand, okay, my soul right now is in charge. I'm starving the body and feeding the soul. And, for the first time now all year, the body takes a backseat to the soul. Otherwise, in our struggle with jihad and nafs and the major struggle of inside of us, it's sometimes people like me, my desires, my anger gets the better of me, and my aql, intellect, my soul takes a backseat. But this is that month where we're so in tune with God that we don't want our body for a moment not to come and interrupt that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an ideal month for us to revisit our worldview. How do you see the world? Because how you see the world is how ultimately you'll live in this world. Okay? Now, these two sides of them, the ideology being, as you understood, the amal, the epistemology is, just another way of saying, how do we know what we know? Epistemology, and inshallah, like I said, we have an entire class on that, but just as a little bit of a trailer, a spoiler alert, epistemology is basically that science that does not teach us what we know. It shows us how we know what we know, or what tools we can know to know what we know. It's a lot of knowing, I know, right? But the point is that look at the 6 boxes in front of you. These are, these are fundamental boxes for our existence. The way we think, what we know, how we act, our intellect, everything. Now, this is basically a summary of the human existence. All of that is controlled and directed by the worldview. So now imagine somebody who has a messed up worldview, right? Who lives in a fictitious world, right? Where they think that Harry Potter is a prophet of God. Think about that for a moment, how the person would live their life, how they would reason, their intellect, their knowledge, all these things, right? And that's why sometimes Islam says that, look, there are some people that you engage in discussion with. There are some people, qalu salama, you just say salam and you move on. Okay. But building off of last night in the chain of thought, understanding deen, the next discussion has to be on worldview, right? And then it brings us to the types of worldview. Now, there are many. Minor, major ones that are ridiculous in nature, only because it's comical, right? People who believe in unicorns, like I said, unicornism, those kind of things, right? And then, so basically, for the sake of our discussion, I will break down the two into the 2 types. Okay, there are 2 major types of worldviews. One is celestial or divine, right? Supernatural, metaphysical, theological, religious, sacred. All those things are kind of like synonymous, or otherwise, as we know it as ilahi, tawhidi, dini in Islamic texts. The second one is terrestrial or worldly, that basically now understands this world to be the end all and be all. It is in nature, it's a materialistic worldview. It's a temporal worldview, a worldview of science, a worldview of empirical knowledge, right? What we refer to as madi, tabi'i, dahari, zindiq, all that in Islamic texts. So the first one are those who believe in a God-centered worldview. The second one is more or less the atheist worldview. Okay. Now these 2 are the ones that are the major ones. Okay. Now we're going to come back to this, right? Look, I want to give you a little bit of preview, and then at 6:45, inshallah, Eastern, I'll open up the floor for any questions. Where I'm headed is this, okay? In the next few classes, I want to lead you to the door of God, okay? But not through ahadith, not through ayat of the Quran. You'll notice that I don't bring about a lot of verses in the Quran. I don't bombard you with qala Allah, qala Hussein, qala Baqir. No, none of that. These next few days will be a intellectual, logical discussion. 1 + 1 = 2. And that's where I really want to take my young guys, and especially and also anyone else who wants to come along with me, is that step by step, very slowly, let's go bit by bit. Of course, I welcome your questions, right? And then once we identify which one of these 2, so at the end of about 4 or 5 classes now, we'll understand with our sound logic and reasoning that one of these 2 is innate inside of me, and the other one has to be rejected. These 2 are so polar opposites that both of them cannot be accepted. Sometimes I think we want to live a life where we have a pinch of the world and a pinch of divine. And this battle that ensues inside of us is just that, right? Think about a person who is connected to the dunya, who is, who's attached to what they belong in, or attached to what they own. How are they going to now attach themselves to God? It's not possible, right? At the same time, we must live in this world, at the same time have a divine worldview. That's a very difficult challenge, but one that, of course, I think we are all up for in terms of the challenge. Now, once I'm able to do that with all of you, then, of course, we enter the realm of God, okay? Then we accept the fact that I believe in a divine worldview. And if you don't, you don't. I mean, if after all that you say, look, I'm still not sold, I reject everything you're saying, Sayyid Asad, fine. May Allah bless you, and that's okay. I'm not here to shove the deen down your throat. I'm here simply to do my responsibility and present to you the logical discussions that we have inside of our religion. Okay. Once you enter the realm of God, then a whole different world opens up. The divine worldview opens up. Okay. A lot of people have this misconception. I'm going to revisit this time and time again because it's going to be a very crucial discussion. I have about 2 minutes left, and that is that a lot of people like to throw the term blind faith around. Okay. I talk to a lot of kids, a lot of young guys, just quickly on text, and they're always quick to kind of, label our previous generation, those of our parents, as, oh, they blindly follow. They don't even know what they're following. They do it out of their robots. Wait a second. Now, hold on 1 second. If an act of worship prescribed by God doesn't make sense to you, you still have to perform it only because it's from God. God made sense to you. So anything coming down from God also must make sense to you, also must be acted upon. Okay. So, while the parents may not explain to you why salat this way and why iftar this way, they do have a very strong belief in God. That strong belief in God allows them to live a life such that whatever's made wajib from God, they do their best to act upon. Whatever's made haram on God, they do their best to avoid. They may not have the philosophical understanding of certain acts of worship, but to them, they don't need it. It comes from a trusted source. Khalas, tamam, sure, that's it. Allah says so, that's it. Now, if later on Allah opens up the doors of understanding for me, that's fine. But I don't need that. So once I understand that divine worldview, then everything comes into play. I've accepted it now. I'm inside the house of divinity. Whatever that house now requires from me, I submit. Okay? This is a very serious process that we are involved in this month of Ramadan. Right? A lot of effort has been done by our ulama, by our scholars to present it like this. Not just me, I'm just regurgitating. I mean, other ulama have done the work, right? So, let's take this seriously and let's really kind of, invest ourselves in this process, okay? So that's our discussion for today. And I will pass it over to Mutahhar Bhai.
Assalamu alaikum, Maulana.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Nice kurta, Mutahhar Bhai. Very sharp.
Oh, thank you so much.
Beautiful. Shadi ka lag raha hai mujhe, yeah.
Ramadan ki khushi mein.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
So thank you so much once again for a great lecture, part 2 today. We have some good questions, Maulana, tonight.
Nice.
So this brother Hassan has a very nice question here from last night's speech first, and then we'll take 2 more questions tonight. The question he have here is, being God conscious requires commitment. The me-centric life created by this age of ease and comfort we live in makes religious commitment an allergy for people consumed in the illusions of this dunya.
Yeah, good word.
So
I like it.
Yeah, this is the question he has. What are the key triggers to focus on to encourage such people and then take them onto the chain of thought, quote unquote, towards religion?
Yeah. So I mean, essentially that's what we're doing here, right? So, we're trying to change the narrative. The part that I don't get is that, why do we and a question for my viewers and for myself really is that why are we so quick to accept the me-centric and individualism dimension of society easily and not accept the God-centric idea? And there's many reasons, right? I mean, instant gratification, and it's hard, and being me-centric is very easy, it's very gratifying. At the same time, I'm sure that one can argue that one of the downfalls of this generation, and I don't mean in terms of age, I mean just the era we live in, is the me generation. And that's been a destructive element. We've seen, the amount of complaints I get from elders and from youth, and all of those complaints are triggered sometimes from this me-centric idea. So, to me, why is it not obvious that the me-centric movement is not working? It's not producing human beings, right? So there has to be another centric idea for us to maybe invest in. So at least, if you can't prove the beauty of God-centric lifestyle, at least begin to talk about the destructive nature of a me-centric lifestyle. And then you can begin to think, okay, fine, what I believe in or what's being shoved down my throat right now may not be the best solution, let's go ahead and look for somebody else. And that's what should trigger our thoughts. Now, mind you, give me about 3 or 4 more classes, it'll start to kind of make more sense to you, okay? And then, yes, it's a commitment, but the reward is so much more. And again, like I said, I need 3 or 4 more classes for a lot of this to start to make sense, right? And we'll get to idea of the unlimited and our fitrat. Everything else happens after that. So if you just kind of hold off on that, I think your answer will come by itself to you in a matter of a couple of days, inshallah. By next week for sure. Yeah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Maulana. So the next question, the same line actually. We live in this materialistic world, like since we are kindergarten, going to school, all the way to school, college, all about the material gains. And how do you expect us to go less, I guess, me-centric to God-centric?
So I'm not. It's not a black or white concept, right? It's not like you shut off, your desires and your wants, and absolutely not. I'm not saying to shut one off and then turn the other one on. I'm saying that we have desires. We have this need to love ourselves. We have this need to feed ourselves, buy ourselves the best of clothing. There's nothing wrong with that. It has to be governed by the proper system. Okay, and I'm throwing this challenge out to all you. I never said this is going to be easy. It's not easy, but that's why the reward that you have waiting for you is an eternity of paradise, right? The reward for you is not, it's not a new car or a new house that can easily be burned down. What's waiting for you, if you do the right effort, is an eternity of Jannah. And so Allah says, I know it's not easy. And that's why, He's not expecting us to be perfect in the process. Sometimes look, and I'll give you a statement. I want you guys to digest this statement, okay? If you find something worthy of doing it, even if you do it at the worst, it's still better than not doing it. Understand that for a moment, okay? I have, Sayyid Asad, I have believed that Islam is the best system. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, but I'm not the best Muslim. That's okay. That's okay. That should not trigger you to leave the deen, right? Because you're still better off with Islam, albeit at the bare minimum than you are without it. Okay. So no one's pretending like this is going to be easy. No one's saying like, okay, turn this switch off, Aram say, and then turn that. No, of course not. It is an absolute process. It is a struggle, right? But Allah says, I accept that struggle. I'm not looking for results always, right? وَجَاهِدُوا فِي سَبِيلِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. If you want to be successful, just try hard on my path. That's it. That's all we ask, inshallah.
Thank you so much. So next question is interesting. So where does tawfiq of Allah fits into this concept of word to the action concept?
Yeah. Sorry, where at the end, what did you say?
Tawfiq. Allah's tawfiq.
Where
where does it fit into this whole this picture of the concept of worldview and the action, the diagram that you made?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously it plays a role, right? So I mean, where but that tawfiq has to, that tawfiq is merit-based. Remember that. Tawfiq is merit-based. It's not randomly, arbitrarily God's giving you tawfiq and strip someone else of tawfiq. Okay? He only gives that tawfiq when you have acted upon that tawfiq before, or you've shown that you're worthy of God's inspiration, or you are able now to embrace that. We talk about Rajab and Sha'ban and the importance of those months. Why do we talk about that? Because those months are the months that, we refer to as Zameen Sazi in Farsi. Okay, getting the Zameen ready, getting the ground ready, right? Once the ground is ready, then it can accept the blessings of the month of Ramadan, right? But the month of Ramadan will only be beneficial for you, can truly be beneficial for you if Rajab and Sha'ban, some work was done inside of your heart, right? Same idea. If we have a little bit of Zameen Sazi, a little bit of getting the heart ready for God's inspiration, we're soft towards it, we're inclined towards it, we're not harsh towards it, we don't have this, we're not jaded, we're not angry, we're not bitter towards God, we're open to the idea. I ask all of you, please be open to what I'm talking about in these nights with all of you. I'm not shoving anything down anyone's throat. Just be open to it. Okay, if you have been hurt by God, if you've been hurt by the ulama, if you have been hurt by some Sunday school teacher when you were younger, and you're angry about some auntie or uncle at Baitul Asr or Baitul Qaim who judges you and judges your hijab and the way you wear your jeans or pants, I'm saying leave all that at the door. Come to me with an open mind and an empty heart. Give at least yourself that much. Okay. If you do that, you watch how the inspiration of God will open up the mind for you. It plays a big role, but provided that God sees that you're worthy of it, like you're actually open towards it. Otherwise, he gives tawfiq to a lot of people, but they reject it, right?
Okay, thank you, Maulana. This question is for our youth, actually, Maulana. So nice question. Is it bad to ask why God when something challenging happens?
No, not at all. It's beautiful. Why God? But the problem with this generation is that they don't accept the answer. Okay, so why God is good, why God is great. Number one, it's such a beautiful question. I love you, whoever asked that question. Why God is great. It shows that you want to be better at understanding God. Okay. Like when my 5-year-old Hassan comes and says, Baba, why this, why that? I just want to hug him and kiss him. He's not accepting things as status quo. He wants to go one notch higher in his knowledge, right? And I think that's a good start. However, there are some things, depending on our age and our capacity, that we simply won't understand just yet, and we have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with the idea that, look, I don't get this right now, but I'm going to keep doing it. Hopefully, as I keep doing it, God will open up the doors of understanding for me. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. But I'm still okay because I'm still doing it. Now, again, you'll say blind faith, Maulana, blind faith. It's not blind faith. Look, if I trust Mutahhir Bhai, right? If I trust him to be a medical source for me, okay? And I know that he's, mashallah, he's educated, he's a successful in that field. Whatever medical questions I have, I'm going to ask him. I'll ask him, look, Mutahhir Bhai, which vaccine should I get? He'll say, you know what, Asad Bhai, get this one, right? I'm going to blindly go to my pharmacy, say, I want, let's say, for example, Pfizer or whatever the case may be. And, even though I have not read 1 ounce on Pfizer and Moderna, no idea, but I trust Mutahhir Bhai. Same idea. Allah is a trusted source for me. Whatever he asked me to do, even if I may not understand it, I will say, you know what, God, because you're asking me to do it, that's it. God, close my eyes and I'll do it. I know later on that this was a better choice for me. These are great questions, man. I'm loving this.
Yeah, I mean, a great question.
Let's go on for hours, yeah.
So we have 5 more minutes. So anyone else has any questions here? You can add more. Of course, I have one more, I think, here. Yes, Maulana, one more question here is that about the tonight's lecture, actually.
Yes.
You said that from worldview, you have reasoning, and then from reasoning, you have thought, the process. They're saying, is there any way we can work between worldview and reasoning? Is there anything we can do so that we have the right reasoning, right thought process?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, that's why if you look at my slide now, I had the dashed line, right? The dashed line is that it's an ongoing process. It keeps going. It keeps building. And remember, once the worldview corrects itself, cleans itself, fixes itself, the 2 boxes down the side, right? All that begins to also, of course, like the reason, thought, comprehension, and the aql and the ilm and the amal, all those 6 now begin to khud by itself, fix itself. Like the example that my ustad will give is a beautiful one. These teachers, I tell you, may God bless them. He'd say, I want you to imagine that you're washing your clothes with your hands, right? Like sometimes when I wash my abba, I don't put it in the washing machine. It's going to destroy it, right? So I have to wash it with my hands, right? So now you wash with your hand. Now the abba is spotless, and he says, look at your hands. They're also spotless as well. Along with the abba, your hands also get clean, right? The cleansing of our worldview cleanses our reason, our intellect, our thought, our amal as well. Khud by itself, inshallah.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question here.
Sure.
If I think we'll finish with that. Let's see here.
Are these all in the WhatsApp group or are they on the YouTube?
No, I'm getting privately.
Oh, privately.
I mean, ideally, if you can put it on the WhatsApp group.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But anyway, we can get the question. That's fine.
That's fine. Doesn't matter where they come from.
But if, yeah, exactly. So let me just see if there's any other question from yesterday's talk. I don't see it. Oh, this is a pretty close-ended question, Maulana. So just in a sentence, actually, let me ask you this question first because it just came. This is from our youth here. What is the purpose of our creation, and how can we make the world a better place?
Yeah, I need an usher for that, unfortunately. All I can say to you is this, and I don't know how old you are. All I can say is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw something inside of you that's great. To the point where when the angels were confused, he said to the angels, you don't know, just be quiet. There's something inside this human being that is fantastic. وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We've honored the human being. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ. We've given him izzah. Allah given izzah. There's respect there. There's something inside of you that's a jewel, a gem, a johar, a diamond, to the point where God says he or she has a capacity to be my representative. When people look at them, they think of me. That's inside of you. The purpose of this life is to discover that within yourself. God already knows, or God knows it's there. To kind of work through the weeds and work through all the garbage and all the hardships and struggles and find that diamond. Okay, and these are the months that accelerate that process. Okay, how can you make a world a better place? Be better. Be better. Be somebody who's worried about recycling. Be checking on your elders, for example. Be good to your family. If you're married, be good to your spouse. If you're not, be good to your siblings and your parents. Right? Just as I said before many years ago, think globally but act locally. Like the world right now is a scary place. You don't need to be a scary person. Right? All you can do is control your own actions. Right? So basically, as the saying goes, be what you want the world to be inside yourself, inshallah.
Great. I guess last question, 2 minutes left. So this is perfect. So in just few sentences, can you explain what exactly do you want to achieve in 15 days from us? Like, where do you want to give us a message?
Good question. So I want to, and I'll give you a little spoiler alert. Basically, as I said before, I want to start building the house of Tawheed from scratch. So you have land, and that's all you have. So right now we're gathering all the materials, and we're going to build this house of Tawheed together from absolute zero. Okay, we won't even discuss God until I think the 7th or the 8th of the month of Ramadan. There's so many preliminary discussions to happen. There's so many tools. I need the drill, I need the hammer, I need the wood, I need the bricks, I need everything before I begin constructing. My point is, at the end of 15 days, for the house now to be strong, firmly rooted, such that the wind blows, the ground shakes, and your house is firm where it is. Okay, and that's what I want. I don't want this to be an inherited house that God gave you the keys. Your dad gave the keys to the house, right? Your dad gave you, or your mom gave you the keys to the religion. Here you go. Just look after it. No, I want it to come from you, right? You're the one that has to now build the house from the ground up. A lot of questions out there. A lot of the problems we have in our communities, in our families, in our individuals stem from a very weak foundational base. I'm here just to strengthen my base first, and then inshallah all of yours, as well, inshallah. That's a great question.
Thank you so much, man. Perfect timing, 7 o'clock now. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow at 6.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.